What are pageant judges looking for? This is a question as old as time that has no real answer. I mean, look, in all seriousness, I get asked as someone who has worked with hundreds of pageant contestants over the years from around the world and coached women who have competed on some of the biggest stages in the world. One of the questions I get most often is, what are judges looking for? And I understand it because you want to, underlying that is, hey, look, I want to do as well at this pageant as I can. And one of the things is obviously you think that knowing what the judges are looking for, that you will be one step closer to achieving that. You think maybe you'll get an edge up, a step up over your competition. But here's the thing. There's a lot of assumptions with that question, and I think a lot of those assumptions are wrong. First off, let me give you an analogy. I think that when it comes to pageant selection, as well as what is a judge looking for, it is not a science. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It is much more like dating. Think of it like dating. So, for example, when you go to find your dream pageant system, and I mean genuine, like your dream system, not the kind that some girls are guilty of saying, hey, I compete in this title, now it's my dream title, and then they don't win that, then they go to the next one, like, oh, actually, this one's my dream title. I'm not talking about that. I mean your genuine dream title, your perfect match, your forever after. When you are looking for that in the dating scenario, there's no objective thing as this is the thing I can say to make everyone fall in love with me. And frankly, you don't want everyone to fall in love with you, I hope, because it's much more about finding a match. So when you ask what is a judge looking for, it's completely dependent on the judge. Now, I know when I'm saying this, it's not going to come across as a huge brainwave. I get that. But I need you to think about it really carefully. If you are asking me, what are judges looking for? What are judges looking for? You're not asking me, what is this pageant judge, Tiny Tim looking for? You're asking me a giant generalization like, what are judges looking for? You're making the assumption that they're all the same. And they're not. So that's assumption number one. That's a problem. Number two, and I think this is an even bigger one, your assumption is that judges actually are competent and that they know what they are doing. And this is an assumption that can lead to a lot of pain. The pain specifically being you doing a lot of prep in a certain direction with the assumption that that's what someone is looking for because that would be common sense. And then it turns out, hey, that judge actually had no idea what he was doing. And so he thought he was actually there to just pick the prettiest girl. And so let me dig into this a little bit. And this is not me crying that, oh, the sky is falling down. It's not alarmist. This is coming from my experience working with all these pageant girls, working with all these systems, and having some judging experience. I'll give you an example. So I was on the judging panel for Miss Earth, not this year, so not 2024, but last year, 2023. And we were judging girls' video submissions. Miss Earth has a lot of video submissions. It sort of started around COVID and has carried on even after COVID. And I think it's quite a good idea, frankly, because it gives the girls a chance to showcase not only themselves, but given that it's Miss Earth, a lot about their countries. And so we were looking at a lot of great footage. And so we had, I can't remember exactly what round it was, but we were looking at this footage. I say we, it was myself and Casey Gibson, who runs the Crowning Moment podcast. And we were told to judge this video. But here's the thing, we weren't given any guidelines really as to what we should be looking for. And we were simply given a sheet that was to rate girls from 0 to 100. But we also weren't told what would be an average score. Like, is a pass a 50? Or is a pass a 70? Is it all right, if the girl hasn't made any mistakes, are we giving them 80 or 100? And so what I need you to get is even one of the biggest systems in the world, Miss Earth being one of the big four, and we being brought on as judges, we weren't really told what to look for. And even further than that, we weren't told what the score range should be. Was under 50 okay? Was that considered a fail, etc., etc.? And so, me being me, and frankly, Casey being Casey, gave it some degree of thought beforehand. I know I certainly did. And the way I generally score is 7, like a 70 is an okay. An 8 is good. A 9 is excellent. And a 10 I would be very hesitant to give, or 100 out of 100, because that would mean it's perfect and there's no area to improve. So anything under a 7 or 70 would be, okay, there's something that really needs to be worked on here. I also thought that, all right, you're showing me, I don't know, let's say it's the ecotourism video, that section of the Miss Earth competition. But what am I really looking for? Well, I'm looking for, as far as I can tell, the best title holder. Given that I'm looking at, let's say, the ecotourism video, sure. But I'm ideally trying to pick out of this ecotourism video who I think would make the best title holder. So it's not me, for example. I made a big point as to trying not to look anyway, at the video production values. As in, how pretty is this video? How well is it shot? Because I knew that some of the girls were having to shoot this entire video themselves and produce it themselves because they were a one-woman operation. But I also knew that some of the bigger countries had entire video editing teams behind them. And so it wasn't fair. If I am looking as a judge for the best title holder, it's not really fair to look at just the video production value, because that may have nothing to do with the girl who submitted it. That might be the video editing team behind them. Now you might say, well, hey Adrian, if they've got a big team behind them, that's a plus. And yes, it is. But then, again, every judge is different. It comes down to me going, well, I don't think that's fair. I shouldn't be picking a girl based on their video production team, because it's not them, first off. And secondly, even if it was kind of, you take them on as a team rather than just as an individual, there's no guarantee that team is going to stick together. So I tell you that story to give you some context as to why I think asking me what a judge, or even asking yourself, what are the judges looking for? I think it's a very, I'm not going to say dangerous path to go down, but I think it may be a giant waste of your time, because every judge is different. And even given that, sometimes the judges aren't told what to look for. And then past that, I know of a big system here, one of the biggest, one of the top 4, at least here in Australia. And they would bring on celebrities to judge. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine. I don't think that your judges should be more of a focal point for your pageant than your contestants are. But even given that, my point is they were bringing on, I call them Z-list celebrities. They were celebrities from reality TV shows that I never watched, and frankly, most people didn't know who they were. But it's not like they came on and did any work as to, okay, here's what we should be looking for. The director didn't take any time to instruct them what they were looking for, like even giving them a piece of paper saying, hey, we're not looking for the prettiest girl. We're looking for a girl who embodies this or this. There was none of that. And so you ask me again, what are judges looking for? These judges thought they were judging a modeling show. They were looking for the prettiest girl. They were looking for, I don't know, the tall or the blonde or wearing a certain type of gown or with a certain type of figure. All the things that we in the industry say, oh no, pageants aren't looking for that anymore. Well, it comes down to what the judges are looking for. And if the judges are either misinformed or don't care or basically incompetent, which I guess sums up the whole thing, and the director hasn't taken time to educate his or her judges, then actually maybe they could be looking for the prettiest girl on the day. So all this to say, you're making a giant assumption when you think that there is one thing that a judge is looking for, because all judges are different, and not all judges put in the same level of care. I would go in, for example, to look at a contestant's social media presence. I would. I know a lot of judges don't. And I've had conversations behind the scenes, quite disturbing ones, frankly, where judges would say, oh, if I need to spend any more time, I was suggesting we needed longer than a 2-minute interview to really get to know the girls. And I always will remember that one of the other judges said if I had to spend more than 2 minutes talking to these girls, I'd go crazy. Like, she obviously didn't think it was important to do the interview section, make it a bit longer. So, all that being said, if it's a better run or more well-established system, and the judges have more of a track record. Let's call them professional judges. But when I say professional, I mean competent judges. And judges who know what the system are looking for, judges who will do their homework, judges who know how to ask a question and how to judge it appropriately. If you assume all of that, which is a giant assumption, okay? But if we assume that the judges are actually competent and know what they're doing, then we can probably answer the question a bit more effectively. But it's not going to be difficult. If you ask me what a judge is looking for, a competent judge, you know they're going to be probably looking for authenticity, hard work, someone who reflects the values of the system. Remember when I gave you that dating analogy? So, okay, if it's an eco-focused pageant, is the woman you're interviewing someone who has an eco-focused advocacy? It's someone who walks the talk. But none of this should be rocket science to any of you. If you've given any amount of thought to it, it's like, well, okay, I want to portray myself as authentic, obviously. I don't want people, when I sit down, the judges think, wow, that's an inauthentic girl, I'm going to pick her. Authenticity, hard work, articulate, all those things, well-spoken, well-balanced, well-rounded, all those things you could think of. So the question isn't what are the judges looking for, because obviously they're looking for someone who's hardworking, authentic, etc., well presented, well spoken, confident. What it really comes down to is, are you able to project that to the judges? That's a giant different question. Of course, the judges, if we're assuming they're competent, of course they're looking for authenticity. No one is looking for inauthenticity. But the question you should be asking yourself is, well, how do I project that? Because I might tell you that judge is looking for someone who works hard. Okay, all the girls, give or take, a lot of the girls are going to have worked equally as hard as you for the title. So the question then isn't what are the judges looking for? The question then becomes, how am I able to best portray, project, get across to that judge that, hey, I'm the hardest working one here, or hey, I'm the most authentic one here, or even at a more generalistic level, hey, I'm the best choice for your title holder, and let me show you why. Let me get across to you in your head, in your judge's brain, that I am the best pick for your title holder. But that's a different conversation, isn't it? Because now it's taken the focus off of what is the judge looking for, and it's put the focus much more squarely on you, on your skills, your communication skills, frankly, your ability to write a cohesive and coherent bio or resume, or do the paperwork correctly, or do the essay correctly. I mean, it varies from system to system. But the focus now is much more on you, your skill set, your communication, your ability to influence other people. As in, when I say influence, I mean, you walk into the room, you really are, the problem you're facing, or the problem you're trying to solve is, how do I influence this judge or this panel of judges to pick me as their title holder? And I like that question much better because it puts the focus on you and what can you do. Because you can work on your ability to influence. You can work on your communication skills. You can work on your paperwork, your bio, your resume, your essay. All these things are now under your control, which I think is a much better way of going about your pageant journey than what are the judges looking for. Because as soon as you're looking at that, even assuming you could find out what they're looking for, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to portray it, at least authentically. And looking outside of yourself at factors you can't control is a really good way of making your mental health take an absolute nosedive, because you're focused on all these outside factors you can't control. So if I was to sum this up, I would say asking what the judges are looking for, it's a bad question because it puts the focus outside of you on factors you cannot control, and it makes a whole load of assumptions, specifically that judges are competent and care, number one. I know a lot of them do, but I also know a lot of them don't. And number two, that all the judges are looking for the same thing. They're not. They're individuals. Remember that dating analogy that I gave you at the beginning, the top of this piece? It's like dating. You got to find the right fit. Not everyone is looking for the same sort of person. And so at the end of the day, if you ask me what are judges looking for, I'm going to turn that question back to you and say, well, okay, I get that. You want to do well. Let's put the focus back on you. How are your skills? How is your communication? How is your ability to influence? How is your walk? How is your ability to portray? All that hard work that you've done, great. But how good are you at communicating that? Because if you've done all the hard work, but you're unable to communicate it, specifically in interview, or you're fun, you're authentic, and you're all these things, but you're unable to portray that on the runway, you don't present yourself well, you don't present yourself with confidence, then it doesn't matter what the judges are looking for because you weren't able to show it. So, work on your skills. Don't worry so much about what a hypothetical judge out there may or may not be thinking. Work on you. And the big bonus with this is you work on you, your communication skills, your presentation skills, your confidence. You're going to be able to take that at the end of your pageant journey and use that as a giant asset for yourself moving forward, no matter what you decide to do. No matter what career, it's going to be important in your career for sure. Your family, your friendship, your relationships, all of that stuff. Or your ability to communicate, influence is going to be important in your life moving forwards. So focus on you, on doing you, staying in your lane, protect your peace, as we like to say. It'll be better for your mental health. And at the end of the day, you'll know. You'll know whether you did it or not, whether you communicated to the best of your ability. And if you did, and they're not looking for you, it's no different, and you don't win, it's no different to you go on a date with someone, a first date. You know, you're both good people, but you just don't click. It's not to say one of you is wrong or that you need to change who you are. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Don't get that stuck in your head that, oh, this is my system and I have to win it. And if I don't win it, it means there's something wrong with me. That's a shortcut to, mental health poorsville, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about this, I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions about this, let me know. But I really hope that helps. Next time you're asking yourself, what are the judges looking for? Bring it back to you. Okay, focus on you, because that's something you can control. The judges, you can't.